You're listening to the Boss Yourself First podcast, Season 3, Episode 12. Welcome back to the Boss Yourself First podcast. In this season of Permission, we're talking about the choices and shifts that allow us to lead ourselves well. And in today's episode, it's especially meaningful for me because my guest is not only an incredible career strategist and coach, but also a colleague of mine at the University of Denver and a friend, Leah Stallone. Leah has over 15 years of experience in talent management, leadership development, and performance management across industries like consulting, finance, tech, healthcare, and now she has her own practice called the Career Edit. And Leah is passionate about demystifying the complicated parts of careers and helping professionals use storytelling to communicate their most meaningful career moments. Enough of the introduction already. We're excited to meet you. Welcome, Leah. I'm so glad you could be here.
Hello. Hi. Thank you.
Absolutely. You and I have known each other for like 4 years now.
I think 4. Yeah.
And I see your passion for supporting people in the job hunt. And you describe yourself as a lifelong career fanatic. So where did that come from? And how has it shaped your own career path?
It's kind of funny. I have always been interested in organizations and how they structure themselves and what they do. Case in point, when I was little and I had a lemonade stand, like I'm talking like 8 years old, I made my friend's interview to work the lemonade stand with me. I had a plan on how to reinvest our earnings to buy more lemonade and cups. I mean, I have always just been fascinated by this. I also had a business where I took out my neighbor's trash for
Okay.
them. So just random stuff. I've always been like an entrepreneur of sorts. And as I've grown up, that like never left me. It's a joke among my family that I know what all of their friends do for a living and how they got into their careers. They're like, I don't even know what my friends do, but you do, because it's just something I truly am interested in.
So it's always been there. You probably can't remember
Yeah.
a time when it wasn't there, I'm guessing, if it started at 8.
No, I really can't. I remember the first time I like literally did something with it was in college. And it was kind of the term where we all had to get an internship, for graduation. And I was majoring in human development, which normally goes on to like teaching, counseling, fields like that. And I was like, but I'm really just curious about people's jobs. Like, how do I find something like that? And that's how I got into HR and started my career there.
I love that. All right, we're going to dig a little bit deeper, Leah. We're talking, I think I mentioned it's the season of permission here on this podcast. And so I'm curious, what permission are you giving yourself right now in your own career?
Really good question. I think it is permission to be myself rather than who I think I should be. And this comes into play a lot. Like, as I kind of just mentioned, I take myself seriously, but sometimes I need to not take myself so seriously. And I need to remember I do coaching, I do training because I love it and it's actually fun. And so I've been really encouraging myself just to kind of like rip off the Band-Aid there and be more myself rather than be so structured, type A. I love planning, I love organizing, but I'm trying to lean into the other side of my brain.
I love it because here's what my listeners may not know about you, Miss Leah, but I do. You have a quirky, fun sense of humor. And I love it when you show up in class and we sometimes share ideas around what we're doing in our classes. And Leah always has this witty spin that I really, really enjoy. And I know her students do as well. So I think more of you is better. So yay on that permission. I'm so excited for you. All right. So I don't want to miss tapping into all that career wisdom you have for us. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. The job market feels tough right now. And from your perspective, I'd love to hear what you feel is going on. It's making it so hard.
It's exhausting, to say the least. Anyone who's viewed job data know that there have been just a record amount of layoffs, number one. So we see some industries contracting, which makes the market incredibly tight for those roles. So we're seeing a lot of people having to make transitions into new fields and industry, which is crowding the market in those fields, right? And so it is a tight situation, to say the least. There are hundreds of people. There are cases where there's thousands applying for a single job. So we're seeing movement is just not happening as quickly. We're seeing like an extended job search cycle as well. It reminds me a lot. I remember like from my own experience back in '08, I was a recruiter and the market was popping right then.
Mhm.
And I decided to make a big career change. And I quit my job to finish my MBA, and the market crashed the exact same week. And I remember the like fear and agony of applying for jobs and literally one by one seeing them pulled, right?
Mm.
And that's kind of it's very much the market we're in right now. To me personally, Robyn, this feels worth like when I think of the different periods throughout history that I've been exposed to, this feels more dire than even the pandemic. I know that was like another point where job searching, there was quite a bit of pressure, and this feels worse. I got to be honest with you. It does. I mean, there's still hope at the end of the tunnel. There's still techniques and strategies you can use, but it is. And I feel like it would be naive or, not fair to tell job seekers like this is an easy market.
I'm going to cling to that hope, but I want to ask one more little aspect because it's showing up in our work at DU, it's showing up in everywhere, and that is AI. How do you feel like it's contributing to this challenging time?
It's interesting. I always break it down for my clients. It might be helpful here. I like to think of what's actually going on as it relates to AI tools and recruitment, because you hear it a lot, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a machine looking at my resume. And the thing I always want to remind clients is that there is always a person behind that machine. And the person is the one who's doing the coding of specific keywords as they narrow down like their bucket of applicable candidates. It's a person, right?
Mm.
And so we have to remember that. I always tell people like the market makes us feel like it's way more complicated than that, but we are literally talking about keyword searches in a database. That's what recruiters are doing. So the best thing we can do in that situation, Robyn, is to make keywords like royalty on our resume and really pay attention to what we're seeing in job descriptions, reflect that back. That's one of the best ways we can get through that stage, because after that, it's a person and they're looking at your resume. And we also want to have it laid out in a format that's like delivering our value to them on a silver platter. So those are some of the things that we're kind of seeing as best practices now. I was going to say, an AI, like I, like many people, believe it has a time and a place, right? And we see AI used in interviews today. So we do see some companies are doing like first rounds where it's a video interview. But I also see clients or candidates using AI as well. And, I always tell my clients, I'm like, please don't put your resume into ChatGPT. Let's not do that. We don't want to put personal information, but you can do simple things like put the job description in ChatGPT and ask it to pull keywords for you, right? Or pull themes. That sort of information can be really helpful. And then it makes sure that the time you're spending job searching is really effective and efficient.
So now I want to make sure I'm clear on the process. So let's say that because when you say put the job description, so you're already seeing a job post and you take it and you put that into say ChatGPT and ask
And
it
you put the
what would
prompt.
keywords be? What would the keywords
Yes.
be for this
Pull
position?
the
Okay.
hard or technical keywords from this job description. And I only say hard or technical, Robyn, because we're in the stage of playing a guessing game. And our
Mm.
guessing game is what words are imperative in this job description that the recruiter may use to whittle down the playing field. Because they can literally put in keywords and say, if the resume doesn't have this, I likely don't want to see that candidate. It's likely they're not qualified. So we have to get into their shoes and start making some assumptions based on the information we have. And usually at that moment, the only information we have is the job description. But it's like breadcrumbs. Like we can take it as breadcrumbs and we can make certain assumptions like job descriptions are ordered in terms of importance. What's at the top is likely more relevant than the additional projects at the bottom, right? So taking those things into account, we can dump that job description in ChatGPT and get a shortcut to get those keywords. and then we can insert them into our resume as long as they're fair and true, right?
We don't want our own hallucination going.
Yes.
But
No, not at all.
I feel like I just got like the magic secret.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why I leave that last step to ourselves. I know sometimes you'll hear people are like, I had ChatGPT rewrite my resume. And I'm like, you better audit that because it does take some leaps in regards to what you did and make assumptions.
I thought that was super helpful because, for one, I think we hear a lot about ChatGPT, or not just ChatGPT, but AI in general,
AI.
being used in career searches and by companies because they're getting 1,000 resumes for one post. And it feels humanly impossible to do that. But there's still a human element that's really key there. So thank you for framing that up for us. I think that's
Of
actually
course.
really encouraging. I'm curious, for someone who right now is feeling a little stuck in their role, maybe they're not feeling like they're thriving, or maybe the career path changed, or maybe it's just the relationships, the leadership style, so it's not working out. How do they know when it's time to make a move, or if it's wiser to write it out? I heard your story about leaving to do your MBA and going, oh my gosh, the market just crashed. So how do you make that decision?
No, I think a big part of it is something that we hear about a lot, but has to do with your mental health. And that's something that like really wasn't talked about in the job search career world for a long time. But I think it's had like a spotlight shown on it. And so now we can talk about it. But when I'm working with clients who are saying things like, I'm really considering leaving my job, right? I'm strongly considering leaving before I even have another job. I always want to like pressure test or work with them to understand how this is affecting them, right? Number one, that's mentally. Like, are you finding that like you're completely tapped out at the end of the day? Your energy is gone. That likely is not conducive to a job search, right? Like, that's going to make it really difficult. I also look at things like time availability. And what I mean by that is some jobs are so taxing. I've worked with lots of people where they're like, I work 60 hours a week. Like, when am I supposed to job search? And then the third piece that we look at is finances. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, practical.
It is. It's like the reality, right? Of do I have the time or the runway to do this? I wish the answer was always yes for people so they could take good care of themselves in that
Yeah.
situations. It's not always the best case for them, but those are the three factors I like to consider.
Thank you for breaking that down. I think that makes it approachable. I know that you are a big believer in the power of storytelling. And I feel like you gave us the little insight about finding those important keywords, the hard and tech words. Were those the phrases you
Hard and
used?
technical.
Okay,
You've
hard
got
and
it.
technical. You gave us that. And I think that is a way of standing out in the competitive market. But I'm curious how storytelling helps, and how can job seekers or people who want to change their career use storytelling to highlight strengths and their uniqueness.
Stories are literally how we communicate in the job world. Any networking call, interview, you're going to be tapped on or given the opportunity to share your accomplishment stories. So, the number one thing job seekers can do, this is number one across all stages, is compile,
Leaning in.
I love it, compile a library of their accomplishment stories. Okay. I like to use a structure, like I'm sure many people have heard of like STAR or SOAR or BAR stories. They're all helpful because they help you tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end. They make sure you're including the relevant details. And I tell people this is the number one thing because you're going to use a part of this on your resume. But again, you're going to use this in every single conversation you have. I think, Robyn, back in the day, like when we were prepping for interviews, we would download a list of questions and we'd write out specific answers for specific questions. But the problem is, if we weren't asked one of those questions, we were kind of screwed, right? Like we were like, oh, I had a really good answer. And it's evolved a little bit. Like good interviewers today, I say good, anyone can become a good interviewer, are people who are flexing the muscle of being in a situation where they don't know what's coming, but they are strategic enough to pick out the stories they want to tell. And the true art of interviewing is no matter what I'm asked, I'm going to pull a story from my backpack and massage it into that answer. So stories are super powerful. And then I also think about what's the number one question people are asked when they're looking for a job? It's tell me about yourself, right? So oftentimes people don't know where to begin. They're like, do I go back to like my childhood? Do I include hobbies? Do I, like, where am I going? And you have to know your starting point first. You have to know where you want to go. I like using a structure. It's tell them about your past, tell them about your present, tell them about your future. So three distinct pieces. What's nice about this is inherent in those three pieces is a storyline. Your job is to have a clear target so you know what the topics are when you are building that story.
So I think I heard you say begin with the end in mind a little bit, knowing where you're trying to go, but include the elements of your past, your present, and your future.
You've got that right. And think about it like how something like your past, I always think of it as your origin story. Like
Okay.
what got you interested in this field or industry? That talks about your future, right? But at the same time, we're saying, where did this originate? Did I have an aunt who was in the field? Did I take a class in college? Did I have an internship where I had exposure? What was the start of this interest? That's how we tie it all together, right?
Yeah. Did I have a lemonade stand?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
I love it. Speaking of which, I'm gonna put you on the spot just a smidge, but I know you've got a backpack full of stories. So can you tell us a story about someone who maybe came to you and they were feeling pretty stuck, feeling a little overwhelmed about the whole idea of finding a job? And can you kind of walk us through that journey a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I'm trying to think, I'll use faux names in this
Of course.
situation, but I had someone come to me, we'll call them Amy. And Amy was laid off from her last position, and she was really at a crossroads. We evaluated those three pieces I talked about, which is mental health, time, and money. And we were able to develop a strategy on what she wanted to look for at what timelines. So we developed like landmarks along the way. Because, for example, Amy, this specific individual, really wanted to target a data analysis or a data scientist role, but she also had experience doing project management. She also had experience doing data analysis. And so we really charted a path based on each of those three areas. And when I do that, Robyn, I like to think and work with my client to figure out likelihood of landing. An example of that is the straightest path to a new job is always going to be same industry, same role. That's the straightest line. Not to say it's easy, but it's the most direct. After that, the next likely are new role, same industry, or new industry, same role. Okay?
Okay.
And, I plot that out for folks so that number one, they can make those decisions on, okay, this target matches my same role, same industry. It's the one I should be putting all my eggs into if time is of the essence. And then we charted out what were those plan B and C's for her. And what sort of time investment is she going to make when this likelihood is slightly less? At that point, what we did, I always start with branding with my clients because if we don't have your resume, your talking points, your LinkedIn in a good spot, I find that many clients are confident enough to talk about themselves without that. And then we did some interview training. I do a lot of mock interviews and interview audits with clients. And we literally workshop after the mock interview. We get descriptive. Again, not because you're going to have an exact answer, but I want them to learn some strategies about how to help people remember what you're saying and how to connect the dots for the interviewer. I always say, like, I go back to my training roots when it comes to communication on this front. And I always tell people we want to say where we're going, we want to tell them where we are, and then we want to tell them what we told them. So it's like a three-prong approach to keeping things sticky. Anyway, worked with her through all of that. Good news is she landed a job. And, this is one of my clients where I asked, I was like, what made the difference for you? Like, what really mattered? She said, you know what? Saying this out loud and getting third party perspective was super powerful because she didn't know what she didn't know. And she didn't know how to compare herself against the competition. And that's one of the true advantages of working with a coach. I work with hundreds, if not thousands of people a year. And so I have like a good mark on what others are saying, what they're talking about, what the strongest candidates are doing.
I really think that was super insightful. You broke down so many things there. And would you just repeat those three things about saying, I know that the last one was tell them what you told them. Could you say
So
that
it's
again?
tell them what you're going to tell them, number
Okay.
one. Tell them, number two. Tell them what you told them, number three. And so that's a good way to like sandwich any of your answer,
Mhm.
because then the listener isn't trying to follow you. Like, where is this person going with this story? Where are they getting to? You're telling them right off the bat. Let me give you an example about a time I had a really tight deadline. Then I tell the story and then I wrap it up with a nice bow. That's just one of the examples I have. I have others I could share on tight deadlines. So
Good.
that's kind of how you bucket your answers in such a way
Yeah.
that make it memorable.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that again was super approachable. And you're absolutely right. And it's easy for us to say because we are coaches that we see the benefits of working with a coach or an objective third party firsthand all the time. And I think it's almost that curse of knowledge where you know so much that you forget to share how beneficial that is. But it is beneficial and super helpful. And I think it, particularly in this challenging job market, really,
Yeah.
really helpful.
Yeah. And I'm all for coaches, like you said, obviously. But I always tell people, like, in lieu of a coach, use your friends and family. Like, they can be incredible sounding boards. And
Mm.
just like we were talking about with accomplishment stories, Robyn,
Uh-huh.
that's an area where it's like, ask your best friend to listen to your story and ask them what they took away from it. And if they're not able to tell you the theme that you were going for, that's like a clue to you. Like, I need to rejigger, I need to tweak this story. So use the people around you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we forget that resource sometimes
Yeah.
because we think they have to be an expert in our field or our area of expertise. But it's simply just, I'm going to tell you a story and you tell me what your takeaway is from it. And if it's not on track, then you need to fix the communication, as you said, to kind of tweak the
You've
story a
got
little
that
bit.
right.
Love
Yep.
it. In our season of permission, we've been talking about the permission principles. So the permission principles are approach, adjust, and act. So feel free to repeat yourself because you've really given us a lot of good tips and insight and I think clarity around some kind of sticky points right now in our job seeking and career journeys. But right now, approaching permission, that permission principle, if you want to approach the job market, what are the key things to think about? Just a couple of points. Again, it's fine if you've already said them.
It's okay. I was going to say, so for this one, I would start with the end in mind. So I always tell clients, we can't start any step of the process. We can't start your resume. We can't start networking. We can't start anything until we figure out where you want to go. And the clearer you paint that picture of what that next step is, the more likely it is you are to land, right? And that feels very counterintuitive for people. They're like, oh, I feel like I'm boxing myself in a corner. It actually works the opposite. The more detailed, the better. So I think that's the initial approach I would tell everyone is stop everything and get really comfy with where you want to go next first.
And is there any secret to figuring that out? Because especially like I have clients who are coming out of college. And so they've just finished grad school or they've just finished their undergrad. And they're kind of like, okay, some of them don't have the clarity and they don't even know how to get there.
Yeah, I think of it as there's two options. Okay. Actually, there's probably more. We know that, right? But there's two that come to mind for me. There's ask yourself or ask someone else. Okay. And what I mean by that is like one very valid option. I work with a lot of mid career professionals. And what we really dig into is building the self awareness around what they enjoy doing, what lights them up, what fills them with energy, because that's going to give us some color as to what sort of things we want to do. Then we can connect it to the market and say, what are the jobs doing these things, right? So we can make that connection there. And that does work well for that level of professional, that introspective look. For more junior folks in their career, I see a lot of them looking for some sort of outside feedback. And so that could be feedback from past internships, past professors. It could also be doing formal assessments. And there are a slew of free assessments on ONET, is what it's called.
ONET?
ONET. It's a government site for job searching. And many people, they want someone else to tell them. They need some ideas, some starting points.
Yeah.
And so assessments can be really helpful at that stage as well. So either ask yourself, meaning do some digging, or ask someone else, whether that's an assessment or a person that gets some feedback.
Fabulous. All right. So that was kind of how do we approach this? And next is adjustment. So what might they need to adjust? And often you and I both know a lot of it starts awareness and mindset. These are the things that we really focus in on to begin with, generally as coaches, but specific to a job hunt or career pivot, whatever that looks like. What adjustments might need to be made?
So to give an example on one I see quite often is adjusting their approach to networking.
Mm.
A lot of times when we think of networking, we think of it as like slimy. We think of it as asking for things. And one thing I work with my clients on is transforming how they think about building relationships, how they look to give back first before they ask for anything. And so that's a big adjustment I think people make. And a part of that is in their mind and how they see the benefits of networking to both parties. I mean, that's one of the things I really like to focus on is that a really good network contact, I'm helping them too, right? It's a two-way
Yeah.
street. And so I think in today's market where we're seeing close to 70% of people getting their jobs through a network, really transforming how you think about that process is really important.
That is powerful. Okay. And that kind of leads us very nicely into that third permission principle around ACT. What do you feel are like the key or the most strategic actions a person can take?
I mentioned the building accomplishment stories or building a
Yes.
library, and I still think that's the number one thing you can do. But I also encourage clients to be a detective and literally. So I tell folks when you're in the beginning stages, it's really wise to compile a list of what I think of as inspiration jobs. Those are jobs that are really representative of what you want to do next. They could be jobs you're applying for, but they could also be jobs in a completely different market. That doesn't matter because if we see a job posting once, it's likely we're going to see something similar again. The wheel is not often recreated as it relates to job descriptions. I always tell like people to be really strategic. You have to have a target in front of you, and those inspiration jobs can serve as a target. And you can even be literal, Robyn, and go line item by line item on these inspiration jobs and ask yourself, have I done this? If I have, is it on my resume? If it's not, what is a micro story or an action or an accomplishment I can share that speaks to
Mm.
this? And that's how you show up really strategic is by using what you know about your audience today. And I mean, I guess on that note, I would love to tell people that like their resume is finished or, their pitch is perfect, but all of these things are a work in progress. And I would bet money that anyone is going to have a conversation at some point and say, well, that was a really good example that came up, or hey, I like the wording I ended up using. So you're going to continuously tweak your pitch, your branding documents, every part of your search.
So it's kind of a constant, it's dynamic. It's a dynamic process. Because I think it'd
Yeah.
be lovely if it was a once and done thing, but it's not because we don't live in a once and done world. We just don't.
No, not at
So,
all. So having that flexibility and that like growth mindset of continuing to update and change how you're thinking about things, I think is very valuable.
yeah, amazing and empowering insights, friend. And I feel like some of our listeners are going to want to learn more about you and your work, especially if they need some extra support and have that inside advantage on their career journey right now. So, how can our listeners find you?
Oh, yes. Okay. So you can go to my website, which is the careereditllc.com. You can also email me. It's coach@thecareereditllc.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. My full name's Leah Stallone. Look me up. I'd love to connect.
Fabulous. And we'll have links in the show notes to make sure that Everyone can connect if they want to. And listen, thank you for joining me here today and for sharing such practical wisdom. So fun. And we got lots more to talk about. We're going to have you back on at some point. But these are uncertain times, and a little extra help in navigating those times is incredibly empowering and hopeful. So, friends, audience, listen here. What I want you to take away, because I always like to make sure that we're clear on our takeaways, is that thriving in today's job market isn't about waiting for perfect conditions. We've clearly established that they just don't happen. It's always changing. It's about giving yourself permission to own your story, to stand out, and to make moves when the time is right for you, strategic moves. So remember, if you'd like to connect with Leah, you can find her on LinkedIn or at the Career Edit, and we'll have those links for you in the show notes. And now I want to leave you with this question. Where in my career or life am I holding back my story? And what would shift if I featured that instead? So I want you to reflect on that, journal it out in light of our conversation today. And one thing we've been doing in this season of permission is having a little permission slip at the end. And it's not because I'm giving you permission, it's because you're giving yourself permission. Here's the slip for this week. I give myself permission to own my story and stand out with confidence. Thanks again, Leah. And thanks to all the listeners.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.